Hi, I'm Linda, and this is episode 15 in my experiences dating as a senior. I really liked PB. He was a former policeman, but had also done some engineering work. His messages were cleverly composed, so I enjoyed the banter with him. Being able to talk to a guy has always been at the top of my list of what I look for. I liked his goatee, and he was reasonably attractive, although a little short for me. If being short is the only thing I might fault a man for, I can easily let that go. Though he was a Geordie, his accent had a flavor of Scottish or Irish in it that reminded me of the Lucky Charms leprechaun. It wasn't attractive because it made him sound old, but I could get used to it. His biggest asset was that he was healthy and had all his hair. This is very hard to find. Seems most of the men my age are on some kind of medication which too often affects their libido. We had lots of messages and a few phone calls before we met up. I wasn't planning to start heavily flirting right away, but ended up doing it anyway. I find it hard to stop myself because I have fun doing it. Unfortunately, it has yet to produce a long-term relationship. He lived over an hour away, so that was an issue. There was an antique fair midway between us, so we met up there. I liked that he was very closely looking over all the tables of antiques. He loved tools, and it was fun to guess what some of the old ones did. He didn't actually collect anything specific, but he enjoyed a good rummage as I did. The fair was small, so we went for a walk around the town. There were some nice antique shops there, as well as a street food fair. We had coffee in a shop and then headed back to our cars. I found PB engaging and a bit quirky, so we kissed a little before going our own ways. He was rather touchy-feely, which I liked. It was enough to become interested in seeing each other again. He had a nice car in his own home, so that was a good sign. For the next week or so, we were in contact every day. He would send me a morning greeting by text, and we would send emails back and forth that got progressively more suggestive. We also talked on the phone a few times. Eventually, we set up a day to meet again. I invited him to my house and to bring his toothbrush. We watched a movie and had a long session of sex. I liked his energy. We ordered a Chinese takeaway and had more sex. It was fun. The next day he was aroused again, so I gave him a blowjob. Then we went to a nearby town which had a few antique stores and a little lake nearby. I followed him in my car there because it was well on his way home. I noticed that he was not touchy-feely at all anymore. In the lake's parking lot, we hugged and kissed quickly. He said he would let me know when he got back from his trip. If he was really into me, he would still want to talk to me every day. It was nothing I was counting on. It is pretty much the norm for a man to ghost me the next day after sex. Any more I expect it. PB was no different. I gave him 24 hours to not contact me again before I started writing my review of him. Once they get what they want, they disappear. Nothing new there, and no great loss again. I already knew the distance was a problem, and he was rather busy with his projects and friends as he lived in the area for all of his life. So why do I do it, when I know in advance there is little possibility of anything lasting? What did I get out of it? I found I am in better condition for sex since I started some exercises. I liked the intimacy, and he had a nice package. Truth is, I was interested in a fling if nothing else. If that is all it is, then it is an advantage that he lives that far away, so I don't see him again. I expect he is thinking the same thing. At least now I'm good for a few months. As this last one was short, I have another one to share here. I rather liked QA. He was okay in appearance and a good companion. We had enough in common to share a few interests, like science fiction and watching DVDs. I was not attracted to him romantically, but he was pretty nice, so I thought I would give him a chance. Just finding anyone to go places with me is a challenge. And fortunately, he had his own car, so I didn't have to use mine all the time. QA had a disabled son he lived with permanently, which was why he had a car. However, it made the situation such that I could never go to his place. If I am serious about a man, I want to see how he lives so I can get an idea of what I'm getting into. QA described his living situation such that I knew I would not want to see it. I also have no interest in living with a man that has children living with him, as that creates all kinds of social problems. I had a few dates with him: a boot sale, a drive along the coast, a visit to a couple of heritage sites, and a DVD movie night. I knew he was wanting sex, but I was never attracted to him. He had a minor reading disability that meant he would never get to know me because he would never read anything that I wrote. His problem made messaging a challenge because of many misspellings and word positions reversed. And sometimes I just couldn't understand what he was trying to say. In person, there was no problem, except that our backgrounds were so different. He often did not get my references to something. He was 5 years older than me, which also might have had something to do with it. In either direction of my own age, beyond 5 years, there is too much of a culture gap. I argued with myself about whether or not to have sex with him because I knew it wouldn't do much for me unless I had serious feelings for him. I like the intimacy, but I'm also interested in affection, especially afterwards. And you just can't know if the relationship has a chance or not until you take them to bed. Because there was no prospect for the kind of relationship I wanted, I talked with him about perhaps being friends with benefits. We never discussed exclusivity. Both of our profiles remained on the dating site. He said he was okay with that at the time, so I had him over to stay the night twice. He wasn't bad, but I realized it didn't do anything for me because I wasn't in love with him. I had wanted to see if my feelings would change, but they didn't. Considering our friendship was not going farther, I started seeing another man who was highly educated and I had a lot in common with. At first, QA acted like he was fine with it. He was shortly going on holiday for 6 weeks with his son, and he wished me luck. I only told him I enjoyed the new man's company. Shortly after QA got to his holiday destination, he started sending me texts where he was jumping to all kinds of conclusions about me. I didn't respond to them. Then he sent some making nasty accusations. In so many words, he called me a slag. My only response was that I said he was being nasty. He sent some more nasty stuff, so I told him he was being abusive and not to contact me again. Then he sent a few more defensive texts and finally an apology. I did not respond. I couldn't get into a conversation with him being so volatile. I could never trust him again, especially in person. Who knows what he might be plotting to do to me? He finally stopped sending texts. I was sorry to lose him as a friend. It was a shame how it ended. Oh well. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe.